Diving into Las Vegas Raiders, 8-9 last year. Same coach, Antonio Pierce. Technically new, but same. Promoted from interim status last year. McDaniels started the season. McDaniels shockingly sucked balls. And
God,
then Antonio
why
Pierce.
does that feel like forever
Eons ago?
Like, I knew Pierce replaced somebody. I would have actively bet against it being McDaniels. I thought that was 2 years ago, and we were already talking about somebody else.
Remember when the Colts got so pissy that they missed out on Josh McDaniels? Wasn't that like him doing them a favor when you think about it?
Failing up.
Yeah, it's called failing up. It's that subtraction, addition by subtraction right there. And new offense, Luke Getsy, the Bears OC for the last 2 seasons. So the offensive masterpiece that was the Chicago Bears is now coming to Vegas.
I read a report that completely threw me off. I didn't know a ton about Luke Getsy. He went to the same school I went to, Akron. I knew he bounced around the NFL a little bit. Apparently, his offense is so complicated. And so I think he just has this like ego where they said Justin Fields did not understand anything he was trying to get done. And now Gardner and Aiden O'Connell both look like shit at OTAs because nobody understands his offense. Like, maybe take a step back, bro. Like, you're not an offensive genius. Maybe you need to work on your playbook a little bit there.
Does Luke Getsy understand his offense is the question. So I love hearing those things. And what's even better is currently their quarterback 1 being drafted is Gardner Minshew, a quarterback 33, but right behind him, Aiden O'Connell, quarterback 36. So you take your best guess on who the quarterback is going to be. Now, Gardner Minshew is currently the last presumed starting quarterback being drafted. The reason he's 33 is Justin Fields is being drafted higher than him because people think that him and Wilson are going to be in a race right there. There could be some Justin Fields trickery. And obviously, these are best ball ADPs right now. This will very well most likely change starting in late July, early August, when more redraft drafts are actually happening. Zamir White, however, is the RB1 for your Las Vegas Raiders, RB23 currently in ADP. Alexander Mattison at 66, and the man who deserves a little more praise, Dylan Laub at RB69, not just because his ADP is 69, but because the man will be and is a dog currently. I love Dylan Laub. Davante Adams, the wide receiver 1, undoubtedly, wide receiver 13. Jacoby Myers, still feeling fairly underrated at wide receiver 58. Trey Tucker, 107, had a couple pop games last year, and they bring over Michael Gallup from the Dallas Cowboys. He's currently not being drafted, so he's just chilling there. Tight end 1, Brock Bowers, he's currently being drafted, tight end 10. And Michael Mayer, the backup, tight end 37. Could be looking at some 2 tight end sets there in Las Vegas. We'll start in the backfield, kicking it to you, Matt. Zamir White, RB23. This is, for all intents and purposes, it's his backfield. I don't think Alexander Mattison is going to contend with him. The only thing that could contend is Dylan Laub, maybe on third down because his pass catching and his route running ability, but he's still a rookie and has to prove everything. Do you like Zamir White where he's being drafted? Do you have qualms? How are you feeling?
I love Zamir White right here. I mean, he's one of my favorite. If you're in that 0 RB or hero RB type thing, Zamir White is the perfect answer to whatever question you have going on. Now, I'm going to take this back just a little bit to Antonio Pierce here a little bit. And Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is the Ric Flair of quarterbacks, right? To be the man, you have to beat the man. The jort-wearing, bedazzle-wearing Gardner Minshew in Las Vegas. It's all about the attitude when it comes to Antonio Pierce and this Raiders team. And 100%. Antonio Pierce, he is that old school football coach. And you know what? You don't have to be a defensive mastermind. You don't have to be an offensive wizard to be a head coach. You have to be a manager of people. And I think that's what Antonio Pierce is. So when the Raiders made the mistake of letting Bisaccia go and going with McDaniels, that went huge in Raider Nation right there. Bisaccia was a coach that the players absolutely loved, and the Raiders made the mistake of not going with him. They were not going to make that mistake a second time with Antonio Pierce. Every player in that room had this man's back. Every man to a T is going to play that Antonio Pierce type game, and there's no one better that exemplifies that than Zamir White. weeks 15 through 18 last season, which is the sample size that we really have for Zamir White, he would go on to average 23.3 touches and churn out on average 114 yards per game. 93 touches over the final 4 games of the regular season. And we know volume is key when it comes to the running back position. You're getting a running back here at RB23 that was getting volume of the top 5 running backs in the entire National Football League down that back stretch. That production that we saw from Zamir White, that added up to RB12 when we looked at his fantasy points over that period of time on a per-game basis. Further to that, I mean, we knew they let Josh Jacobs go. Josh Jacobs was ineffective. Everyone could talk about Josh Jacobs was there. Look at what Josh Jacobs did when he was there. He was ineffective. He wasn't having a typical Josh Jacobs season. And then behind that very same offensive line, Zamir White comes in and absolutely crushes it. White finished that stretch 6th in yards after contact per attempt, 13th in explosive run rate, 17th in success rate. That doesn't just stop there. So I'm not going to be shocked in any way, shape, or form if Zamir White somehow ends up with 300 touches this season and all the goal line work, which is even bigger because, hey, you need them tutties if you're going to score in fantasy points, right? I mean, that's where all the points are going to be in those tutties. Zamir White's going to get those goal line works. This offense can't be any worse than it was a season ago. It really isn't.
It can only go up.
Gardner Minshew's got probably even more talented wide receivers now than he had in Indianapolis. And he was a Pro Bowl quarterback when he was in Indianapolis. Michael Pittman, Davante Adams. Who is the number 2 in Indianapolis? Who is the number 2 in Indianapolis? Alec Pierce? Come on, man. Jacoby Myers, you mentioned him right there. Let's put some respect on Jacoby Myers' name. You mentioned, was our wide receiver 58? He's going to be like wide receiver 24. He's the guy who could sneak into the top 24 and be a wide receiver 2 for you.
He was last year, damn near, I think.
He was. That's exactly it. So you've got some weapons to the outside. Bring in Brock Bowers, Mr. Businessman, Mr. BM himself. And now all of a sudden you've got 3 pass catchers capable of taking away that box, which is going to make things much easier for Zamir White here in 2024.
Let me tell you, I didn't give a shit about Zamir White until that. So I could care less about Zamir White. So now I'm drafting him. When we go back
to the 2022 draft, everybody's fear on Zamir White was the knee injuries. And so if he's over those, we thought this kid was going to be really good coming out of Georgia. And then I go back to the 2 guys who I really liked out of that draft are Zamir White and Kyren Williams, both blowing up. And now Kyren Williams in a way, way bigger spotlight than Zamir White was. But it's just interesting that these late round picks from 2022 are starting to show out a little bit. But just the biggest thing that Matt didn't touch on, because he hit on everything else, is zero competition, because Alexander Mattison is JAG, just a guy. So literally no competition for Zamir White. That backfield is his once again, like we saw in those last 4 weeks.
So go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, how can you not love this situation? I mean, aside from all of the stats, just looking at the situation, there's nobody behind him. As you keep his ADP depressed, he's going to be a value no matter where he ultimately ends up performing for this season. I do worry a little bit that maybe he doesn't see the type of pass catching volume that Josh Jacobs did or it earned in the last few years. Whether that's Dylan Lobb coming in and taking some of that work, whether it's Brandon Bolden, kind of the holdover from that Josh McDaniels era.
That's not Brandon Bolden. I can guarantee you that right now.
But you know what? He was second on this team in targets last year in terms of the running back room. That's what I'm getting at. If Dylan Lobb can't figure out passing downs and pass blocking, he's not going to see the field to earn those touches, right?
Don't worry. That man is a University of New Hampshire educated graduate, sir. Okay?
Put some respect
on the D1 AA Wildcats, baby.
Regardless, everything to love about RB23 at this point with 0 behind him. Alexander Mattison, we all hyped him a little bit last year because he had no competition. Then he came in and dropped the ball. I'm not saying that can't happen with Zamir White, but you still have to buy in because of the depressed ADP.
We did not all hype Alexander Mattison.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm throwing that out there.
Incorrect. Incorrect.
point.
Just one.
But the
dumbass
point I was
on this
getting
show
at
hyped
with
Alexander
Madison last year was he was a value at where he was being drafted.
and then he wasn't when he actually played NFL.
You are
football.
until you aren't.
Yeah,
Exactly. You are until you aren't. You know?
Yeah, innocent until proven guilty, and he was proven guilty within 1 minute of the
Yeah,
NFL season last year. Real quick, we love our Would You Rather games, and we love playing it with our guest players. Matt, you probably never played this before. Would You Rather, very simple. I put out 2 names, and you tell me which one would you rather. It's a hard concept to understand.
I love that we explain it.
Yeah, it's a very hard concept to understand. He's Canadian. I don't know if it's different up there, and
The American Canadian translation gets a little tossed up. The metric system,
Ryan,
the imperial system.
It's the metric system.
There's a clear language barrier here.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure he understands. I don't need an explanation. Just who would you rather have? And I'm gonna go because we're gonna play Hero RB. That's what we're gonna do, the Zero RB strategy. There's a lot of running backs going the 8th round, so there's a lot of people probably playing the Hero RB strategy with all of these guys. So I want to see, would you rather Zamir White, who's RB23, and again, these are all 8th round guys, or Ramondre Stevenson, RB21. Matt.
Well, as you know what I am saying here, I'm probably going to go with a running back from Las Vegas. You know what? It's funny because on my redraft rankings there, I've got Zamir White at RB20 right now, just behind Najee Harris, but just ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. And you can't just ask me a question that would you rather and leave it at only saying one name and not having to speak, because I don't know when to shut up, but I'm going to go Zamir White here pretty easily.
Ryan.
I can't give up on Mondre. Give me Mondre.
Josh.
Yeah, it's Ramondre pretty easily for me.
Ramondre. I'm a Patriots fan. Jonathan Brooks or Zamir White. Matt.
Again, I'm going with Zamir White. I got the guy. I know what his volume is going to be. I know what his role is going to be. You talk about Ramondre Stevenson there. He's got Antonio Gibson, whether you want to believe it or not. Stevenson's bread and butter was the passing volume he was getting. Gibson's going to cut into that. Zamir White never really got the volume in the passing game, so I'm not even going to have to factor that in the equation. Jonathan Brooks, first off, he's still dealing with that injury. He's still not back yet. And let's not just forget, Chuba Hubbard, a fellow Canadian from the Edmonton area. Let's put some respect on the man's name.
Now.
He came out and he actually played pretty good. So, I mean, everyone wants to bury him because the rookie's there. I don't think he's ready to give up that spot yet. And listening to David Canales, again, we're talking coach speak here. He had a lot of positive things to say about Tommy Tremble. Take that as you will. And he had to say good things about Chuba Hubbard here. So, hey.
Take that as you will.
Yeah. Tommy Tremble and Chuba Hubbard in the same sentence isn't a glowing endorsement for either guy. Ryan.
No, it's Zamir White.
Josh.
It's Jonathan Brooks for me. ACL injuries aren't what they used to be. I'll take Jonathan Brooks all day, every day.
And Jonathan Brooks may not be what he used to be.
You're right. He could be better.
I'll take the team with the better defense because they'll have more opportunity to run the football. So Zamir White at that point, but to me, it's close. It's close on both of them. And now these next few, because I really don't think there's much of a competition until the last guy. Somebody stop me if you would take this guy over Zamir White.
No.
DeAndre Swift. Jalen Warren.
Not me.
Zach Moss. Tight.
It's close. It's close. I'm still going to go Zamir White. I love the fact that Moss is going from one offense to another offense. It's basically the exact same. Single back, shotgun, a lot of success. I think Moss is a sleeper, but it's still White.
And then last one where I think there could be conversation because of his what he's done. James Conner.
I would take Conner.
I have Conner in my rankings at RB16, so he's ahead of White here. And I think, again, let's not bury a man before he's dead. Trey Benson's coming here, knocking down that ADP on James Conner. He's not going anywhere, at least not for the first 12 weeks of the season.
Josh?
Yeah, the only one of those guys that I wouldn't take is Zach Moss. I love all of them over Zamir White.
So you're just all right. So you Zamir White.
I think the biggest issue with Zamir White is, and Josh touched on this, and I imagine this is where it's coming from in his rankings, is we don't know what the passing game is going to look like.
Yeah.
Those other guys, you're assuming they're taking the lion's share of everything. So.
Fair.
Yeah, and see, and I'm just going off that small sample there where he wasn't getting that receiving yard,
but he was still fine.
But he was RB12. So, I mean, if I'm getting an RB12 with no receiving work, even if he gets like a portion of that, I feel pretty good that he's going to finish top 16. He's probably going to outdo my ranking of RB20.
Joe, I know you want to move on. I just want to really quickly throw in. I always find it interesting when I see Vegas lines on players, and FanDuel has been really weird on some of the ones I'm going to bring up today when I was doing my research. But the special line on Zamir White for touchdowns was 10, and the team scored like 7 last year, and I was like, that seems like a very high number. Like, strange to me.
Well, Ryan, we're going to keep it with you because we'll just bounce from one Georgia guy to another. Brock Bowers, tight end 10 currently. He was the first-round pick for the Raiders. Yeah. A lot of people had him either mock going to the Jets or the Raiders.
Yep.
Is it much better of a situation? No, but he doesn't have a quarterback that hates tight ends. So that's huge. And he's tight end 10. He's currently going in between a lot of pretty heavy hitters at the tight end position. Is he the mid-round guy you want to go for? Because he's sandwiched between Jake Ferguson and David Njoku.
1,000%. This is what I brought up in my article is I have never seen a disconnect between hype and average draft position that I'm seeing with Brock Bowers. I'm going to be super interested if this gets better or worse come August when we get into just total redraft season. Because I don't know how much the average fantasy football player follows college football to know that, like, Brock Bowers arguably is the greatest college tight end to play football, at least from a receiving standpoint. And now we put him on the team, and all of a sudden it's like, well, fuck him. Like, the Raiders have destroyed all of his value, and it makes zero sense to me at all. When you look at this team, Luke Getsy's system, Gardner Minshew certainly, and to a lesser extent, Aiden O'Connell, they throw to their tight end 15 to 20% of the time. They were in the bottom 10 in plays called last year, and you could still see that translate to 100 targets going to the tight end. They didn't throw to the tight end a lot last year, but that's because Michael Mayer had trouble getting past Austin Hooper. And now all of a sudden people are like, Michael Mayer is a sleeper. He couldn't get past Austin Hooper. And now Brock Bowers is there. This is an offense where we're going to see Brock Bowers essentially play the third wide receiver with Jacoby Myers and Davante Adams. Mayer still could see some traditional tight end snaps. Bowers is that guy.
Hey, can I ask you, Ryan, where did Michael Mayer go to college?
Notre Dame.
Because Notre Dame can't produce fucking skill position players.
But I do want to go back because I just drafted him in a dynasty startup. Cole Kmet is the case study for why you should love Brock Bowers, not hate him. Because Cole Kmet had 2 NFL touchdowns before working with Luke Getsy. He scored, what was it, 6 and 5 in the last 2 seasons, or 12 total in the last 2 seasons, something along those lines. Luke Getsy gets his tight ends into the end zone. Brock Bowers is not going to have the touchdown problems. I'm in love with this. As long as he stays in the 8 to 12 range, I am all over Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, if he stays in that range, will cause me to not take Travis Kelce early because I think the value's there.
So again, I don't want to spend too much time on a tight end, but we're looking at Jake Ferguson, David Njoku, Dallas Goedert, Dalton Schultz, Pat Freiermuth. We have the confidence in Vegas's current situation to put him over those guys. That's all I'm saying.
100 times out of 100.
Great. He's on my dynasty team. I'm excited about it. I'm just asking. I'm simply just asking.
To me, those names you mentioned aren't even close. Njoku is the one you can make an argument for, but Njoku with Deshaun Watson is not Njoku with Joe Flacco. So.
Correct. It's Joe Flacco dog, first off. Yeah. We'll talk about Joe Flacco later when we talk about Anthony Richardson, all right? Because Joe Flacco's about to see 14 games this year for the Indianapolis Colts and lead them to a division title. Yeah! But bouncing to the receiver room before we get out of Las Vegas, Davante Adams. Josh, it's to you. Seeing Davante Adams at wide receiver 13 feels criminal when you just look at who Davante Adams has been and the fact he's being drafted as the first wide receiver 2. It feels like insane value for Davante Adams if you were to get him there. Do you feel the same way, or do you think this is kind of where his ceiling is based on the current situation in Vegas?
It's definitely not where his ceiling is. I mean, he finished wide receiver 10 last year. So, going into age 32 season, expecting a little bit of a downtick in production, I don't think that's crazy or federal. Let's call it what it is, right?
Shout out to my 22-year-old interns that put us on federal in the Indy Fuel office. Stupid.
No, I mean it's not crazy, but like, at the end of the day, 5 of the last 6 years, Davante Adams has topped 1,000 yards. He has not. Last year was his lowest yards per game since 2017, though. So largely probably the quarterback problem. That problem really didn't get any better though this year. So it wouldn't surprise me if some of the yardage maybe isn't there. He's traditionally been more of like an 11, low 12 yards per reception kind of receiver. So you're looking at heavy volume, right? But here's the thing. The last 2 years in Las Vegas, he's seen greater than a 30.5% target share. That is asinine for a top-end wide receiver in this league. So it would not surprise me one bit if he's still over 160 targets come by the end of 2024. That's going to keep him in the top 15 wide receiver conversation, no problem. But when you talk about touchdowns, he has over 90 touchdowns in his career. Only once in the last, since his second year in the league, has he had less than 8 or less than 7, I think, something along those lines. Like, it's just crazy. Like, this guy finds the end zone. And we saw last year when Luke Getsy's calling plays, like, he can hyper-target a wide receiver 1. So, like, I'm really not worried about this by any means. Like, we can talk up and we can hype up Jacoby Myers all we want. He's never once hit 900 yards in a season, and last year with 8 touchdowns was clearly a spike season. So,
I
don't believe.
You and Matt were so in on Myers. Me and Josh are so out on Myers.
Matt, they don't.
Yeah,
believe.
like you spend a top 13 pick on an offensive weapon. Jacoby Myers is not Luke Getsy's guy. That's Josh.
They don't believe.
So,
That's
it's not that I don't believe. I like Myers. We saw his ceiling last year. That's what I'm getting.
Send him back to New England, please.
Yeah, go ahead. More for Davante Adams and more for Brock Bowers.
Yeah, it makes everyone happy. The Patriots get a real receiver, and then everybody in fantasy football becomes happier for it. Ugh. They don't believe, Matt. They don't believe in our boy Jacoby.
You know what? Forgive them for what they do not know, I guess, is the best way to put it.
I know. Repent them for their sins. It's okay. Jacoby's a guy. He's a dog. Hell, he could be the quarterback by like week 6. When you think about it.
Then there's Taysom Hill value.
Yeah, then there's Jacoby Myers.
I will add this. Like, I look at Brock Bowers and I looked at Hunter Renfrow. If people remember Hunter Renfrow, have we ever seen these two guys in the same room? Because they look like they are the exact same person. I mean,
one I would say spent a little more time in the sun than the other, but yes.
I was about to say, Matt's colorblind. Love that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Brock Bowers and Hunter Renfrow here.
He said Brock Bowers. You guys are so very confused.
I heard Jacoby Myers.
No, he said Brock Bowers. I was like,
I mean,
is there a joke I'm missing here?
Then yes, both of them look like the lightest crayon in the Crayola box. So that is
so fucking confused. I was like,
yes.
So was I. I'm the one who said it.
Yeah,
that checks out.
They got Matt doubting himself. I heard exactly what he was trying to say.
My bad. Before we head into the Saints, wrapping up the best bets. Just going to lay them out here. Ryan has the Raiders to beat the Broncos in both regular season games. That's plus 180 on FanDuel. God, these sports books will put out any fucking bet to take your money.
So weird, bro.
It's insane. Josh just talked about Davante. He has him over 1,000 yards receiving this year. That's minus 112 on FanDuel. He says way over. He also likes the over on Adams receiving touchdowns, which is 6.5. That's even money on DraftKings. And then Matt, you have Adams at 15 plus 1,500 to lead the league in touchdowns. He had 8 last year and led the league in 2022.
He's actually led
like
the league twice
bet.
in the last 4 years.
That's so those are the kind of things you look for on high plus bets. So
this is an easy one. I mean, you're not really risking anything here to throw that out there. Then you kind of hedge that with that 8 or 7.5 touchdown on top of it. So put that bet down on that one. Then go ahead and put a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Parlay.
If you feel confident in that, make a parlay, and your odds are going to go over plus 2,000 at that point, and you'll be sitting pretty. Because if one happens and the other doesn't, you're fucked. It doesn't matter.
No big deal.
Yeah.
But you look at this. Michael Pittman last season, 100 plus passes from Minshew, so almost a 30% target share. Adams is seeing a 34%. The targets are going to be there. 170 targets in 3 straight seasons, and with targets come opportunity. So it's there. I mean, this is a guy that led the league in touchdown passes from Derek Carr. What makes you think he can't do it with Gardner Minshew? It's the same quarterback.
If you put Davante Adams in Justin Jefferson's situation in 2022, everybody would have been drafting Davante Adams 101 in 2023 because Davante Adams would have smoked everything Justin Jefferson did in that offense. Would they have been the same yardage? Maybe. Davante Adams finds the end zone. Josh talked about it last week. Justin Jefferson has a hard time finding the end zone. Davante Adams has not had that issue in his career.